Oh boy. You know, one of the biggest challenges that people who think they know how to network, um, it's not even a challenge for them. One of the biggest misconceptions people who feel like they know how to network is they take their business cards and it becomes a game or it becomes a session of gamification. I don't know how to explain this. It's like, well, actually, I do know how to explain this. I don't know if you've ever been to either. This happens in certain like board meetings where it's like maybe like a business advisory council or something like that, or conferences where the first thing before somebody reaches out their hand that's open, they've got the card in it, or now that we're fancy, we've got the NFC situation. By the way, there are a few cool ones. I think there's one called Hi Hello. There's another one that I subscribed to recently called Popl, Popl. It's actually a really good one. As a matter of fact, I have the metallic business card where you can tap it on the card and it's fancy, right? You would be surprised that I didn't need any of that when it came time to networking and actually making a transaction. Not looking for it, but making a transaction because of just the normal conversation and connection having with that you have with somebody. Let me tell y'all, when it comes to the C-suite, I have a hunch. Remember, that's one of the phrases for this year. I got a hunch that for some, the way that you socialize in those kind of environments is probably very similar to how you lead. Whew. All right, getting a little hot. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna cover three things. Well, maybe a little bit more. It depends on how I'm feeling. We'll start off with three pitfalls. We might even go into a little bit more than that. But y'all, the first pitfall, let's jump right into it, is being too transactional and not building genuine relationships. You've seen this before. You've seen this before. Somebody comes to you, and before you are even in mid conversation, they're ready to exchange a card. Do you know that the exchanging of a business card means absolutely nothing unless you can remember who that person was? It really doesn't. It's almost like going to a card show, like a trade show, and well, actually, that's different because you can actually see the value. You actually know the value of the cards. This is different. Going to a trade show where you have actually no idea what the value of those cards are. You don't remember who the person is. You can't remember the conversation. True story. I remember going to a networking event. This is when I used to live in New York, and I kid you not, I probably intentionally spoke to maybe two to three people, individuals that I was able to circle back to. The very last person that I connected with, y'all. Oh my goodness. Very last person that I connected with, we didn't have any cards. We wrote our contact info on napkins, like tore off napkins, wrote the contact information, exchanged it. And do y'all know, this guy actually ended up becoming not a TEDx, but a TED Talk speaker years later. And I don't know if we still connect to this day. As part of the networking that we're going to get to, the actual follow up. I still work on that. But my goodness, the fact that we were able to build that connection, and that he was able to reach out to us and to let us know, giving us the update, like, oh, hey guys, listen, I'm actually on the stage for the TED Talk. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But I would have never known that if we didn't stay in contact, right? And the other thing too is he was really great with follow up, so he actually bridged that gap. All right, so what am I trying to say? People can smell, especially now, they can smell, they can sense when you're being transactional. One of the most beautiful things that happens when you go to a networking event is when you feel like you have nothing to lose, but everything to gain. What do I mean? If you go to an event and you feel like, I have to go to this event because I need a job, I have to go to this event because I need to connect with somebody so that I can make a certain amount of sales. Because this happens like in the medical field. Um, I need to go to this particular event because I need to fulfill a certain level of professional development credits, whatever it is. Like, you go in there with an obligation, and I'm not saying that those aren't real. Those are absolutely real. Y'all know that some of those things are real. Like, that there are legitimate reasons why you're gonna go versus just like, you know, just going to have a good time. I get that. But one of the most beautiful things that can happen is when you go and you actually, hear me out, you actually connect other people at the same event that you're at. That's next level. There's only a few people that I know who can do that. There's only a few people. And guess who's one of them? Yeah. Okay. So what do I mean? Some of y'all maybe have seen me do this, and if you're watching right now, vouch for me. Like, I'll show up, I'll connect with somebody, and just the way that my mind works as we're connecting, it takes active listening. We're not going to talk about the different ways of how to network, and that's another stream. Actively listening, and then I might connect with somebody else, and as they're talking, I might say to myself, "Wow, you know what? You actually need to connect with this person." And you just end up just kind of being the plug. This actually happened not too long ago. Went to an event, and the connections that were being made through me being the conduit, somebody ended up coming up to me and was like, "So what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, first of all, I'm a plus one." Very low. So I'm here just having a great time. I have zero obligations than just to support my friend and to enjoy, and then to enjoy myself. That's it. And the other thing is I enjoy doing that. Now, not all the time. Like, sometimes it takes work and energy, but when I'm in that flow, I'm in that flow, y'all. And it feels so good because they may think that you have an ulterior motive and you really don't. Like, I didn't, and not only that, you still end up meeting people anyway, right? So sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I make it a game for myself, kind of gamify certain networking events where I try to figure out how many people can I connect versus people that I connect with. All right, C-suite people, beloved, y'all are too transactional. And I have a hunch that as you're transactional in those kind of events, it just kind of reveals perhaps just a little bit of how you might be in business. You need to be more relationship oriented. So quick examples here. CEO, we're going to give him or her the visionary persona. These individuals may lean too heavily on selling the company's future vision, discussing strategic direction without truly engaging the other person's interest or needs. This can happen in an event now. You just have these ideas and you're just going about this, but you're not really focusing on what other people are saying, right? That actually ties into the second pitfall, by the way. CFO, we're going to give this person the financial guardian persona. So this individual could be overly focused on cost savings, returns on investments, budgets, making discussions sound purely numbers driven and less about rapport. Okay. That's all they're talking about. I remember I was at one event years ago where I think I connected with people from, I think it was a bunch of them in the insurance industry. And my goodness, I had to ask questions. It got to a point where I got comfortable asking, "Hey, what is that? Where is that?" I mean, these are probably perhaps some big guys, talking about going here to, skiing here and going here. I didn't have that, those experiences. So I'm like, "Oh, wow. Where's that place?" There has to be a level there has to be a level of self-confidence. It's probably, self-confidence in order to say you don't know something, but do it in a way where, of course, you don't want to sound or, appear to be ignorant, but at the same time, you're genuinely learning. The challenge comes when you do that, but you're in an environment where it's like, yeah, you're not really one of us, so you can't really understand it, right? Once again, my hunch, you do this stuff in a social setting, it's not even that leaks out into your management, the way that you manage the company or people or lead people. It's just a reflection. Okay. CTO, we're going to give them the technical innovator persona. So they might deep dive into technical solutions or technical architecture, leaving little room for shared personal interests or broader strategic considerations. These are people now going to networking events. And remember, most times the first question that anybody asks, the most common question anybody asks is, "So what do you do?" And these individuals will wax eloquent about what they do, and they would just talk so much about it, but from a perspective of maybe seeing if there's any room to create business. Now, once again, I'm telling you that networking events is for that as well. but you have to read the room and you got to be careful. What kind of network event is it? All right. Okay. So, how do we avoid this? Well, there's a few things that you can do. The first thing that you can do is demonstrate curiosity. One of the ways that you do that is by asking questions, open-ended questions. So for those of us that are UX designers or people who are qualitative researchers, you understand the importance of quality questions that aren't close-ended, that aren't leading, that don't have a social bias, but are genuine questions that allows the person to kind of give you more than just a yes or no answer or a one word answer. So where are you from? And they just give you that. And then it's like, now you got to follow up again. And, so you can also share personal insights, not about your business. Okay. Get a little bit more close to home to an extent, right? There's also going to be boundaries here, but you want to balance business talk with general or not general, but more genuine anecdotes, stories about yourself, reflections perhaps to create a sense of authenticity. But you also want to adapt your conversation as well. So, like, if you notice a person resonating with a particular topic, let's say it's sustainability, what you want to do is you want to steer the conversation in that direction to deepen the connection. Like, don't say, I'm not really feeling this. Let's go here. Now, there is room for you to understand, I don't know much about this topic. So perhaps it depends. Perhaps that could be the time. Perhaps that could be the time where you ask more questions. Sometimes it's just, what, you just need to, especially if it's not just you and that other person, it might, let's say a group, you stand back and watch and you listen and you learn. What you don't want to do is to act as if know anything about a particular topic and you have no idea what they're talking about and you want to insert yourself because you just want to feel like you need to be heard, or seen. Don't do it. If anything, just choose a different circle. You can always move around. Okay. So yeah, that's the first pitfall. Stop making things so transactional. It's not always about a business card, right? Or about business. As a matter of fact, some of the most probably significant business transactions happen because the person or the team, they take a liking to you. So that builds the trust. And I wrote about this before. The quickest way to bridge the trust between leaders in a team, or now between two people, is a story. And guess where that story is going to come from? It's going to come from you. It has to be a personal story, right? Personal enough. Don't get too deep too quickly and scare them off. Don't do that. All right, next. When you fail to listen actively and you monopolize the conversation, this is very similar to the transactional one. Transactional, you are dead focused on making sure that you're taking something. Most times it's you're taking more than you're giving. You want somebody's business, and so you steer the conversation away, and you say certain things so that you sound perhaps more impressive, so that you want them hopefully to say, "Wow, you know what? I actually want to do work with you." Most times, I'm telling y'all, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't. You'd be surprised. People can sense it from a mile away. The person who's, pitching when you don't really need to do that if you are a genuine individual. Maybe towards the end, if I remember it, I'll tell you what it is, because people talk about, you have to be charismatic. And I want to share something with you that will help you to understand what charisma really looks like when you network. Okay. So you got to listen more actively. And you got to give people a chance to talk. And one of the ways that you do that is by actually asking questions. So that's, like I said, it's tied to the first one. So many times high-level executives, they're used to articulating their vision and making decisive statements. So in networking settings, it can also translate into extended monologues about company achievements or plans or challenges. You might have experienced this, or you might be that person. Stop it. Break that habit. Okay? Because you're doing this and you're not getting input from others. Once again, the hunch. If you're doing this anyway, in this fashion, you probably are even in the boardroom like that. So if you do have these long-winded monologues in a social network, in a social event, ask yourself, do I even do this when I'm actually at work? It's a high possibility. So our charismatic leader, right, the CEO, let's give them that persona, the charismatic leader. They have a strong personal brand and a confident demeanor, but they can unintentionally overshadow conversation, or their partners in conversation. and it could lead them to feel unheard. The best conversations I've had with individuals that are in the C level is the ones who listen more than talk and actually ask questions. Now it gets funny, like when both people are like that, it's like who's gonna be the one to talk the least, right? But the point is, you want to make sure, especially if you're in that kind of a role, and sometimes it can be, for lack of a better phrase, a pissing match. People just kind of want to, be able to have this competition between, sharing this, and I use the word bravada. And it doesn't only have to be a bravado, right? Where it's this sense of power positioning that they need to have when they're at these events, and you don't need to do that. It's off-putting. CFOs, the money people, could be perhaps analytics focused in this particular scenario. You might dominate discussions with detailed financial projections or risk assessments, or you could be overwhelming those who are not as financially inclined. Relax with the jargon. Calm down. We get it. You know your numbers. It's all right. Speak plainly. And before speaking, listen. All right. CTOs. CTOs, our chief tech officers over here, they're more the problem solver personas in this particular scenario, with the pitfall of not actively listening and monopolizing the conversation. Well, in an effort to fix or provide solutions, they can quickly launch into technical explanations. You guys have seen this before. You've seen it in movies. You've seen it in TV shows where somebody asks, "How did you do that?" And they go through this long-winded. Well, what I had to do was I had to go in the back end. Now I don't even know the tech, so I'm not even going to try to do it. But they go through this whole spiel when all they really needed to say, and a character from a show says it, it's like, okay, please skip all that. Let's get to the end. Well, what did you do? And they said, I found it. Thank you. Now, here's the thing. For problem solvers, those of us, and it's not just CTOs, but let's just use the CTO as a persona in this case. Oftentimes, you want to glorify, not really glorify, but you want to highlight the process of how you solve the problem. Once again, read the room. Sometimes you don't need to do that. Now, there are people who want to know how you even got to solve it. Yes. If they do, first, maybe you ask, do you want to know how I did that? Versus just going through this whole long process when you don't even need to do that. Kind of taking the scenic route when you really just need to go straight to whatever it is, like perhaps a question that was asked of you. CMOs, I didn't introduce that in the last one, but for the CMO, the storyteller persona in this particular scenario of the person who doesn't actively listen and they monopolize the conversations, or they can have enthusiasm about, let's say, a campaign. And maybe they have some storytelling success. What they do is they take these experiences and they morph it into lengthy brand narratives that don't invite a two-way dialogue. Remember when I told you guys the different kinds of conversations? You've got the diatribe, you've got the debate, you've got the discourse, and you've got the dialogue. When you're at networking events, you want to make sure, for the most part, we're humans. I get it. So, it's not going to be perfect, but you want as much as possible to be in the dialogue quadrant. It's where there is no competition. There is the most amount of cooperation, connection. One is giving, one is receiving, one is giving, one is receiving. Okay. And that's so simply put because there are transactional models, communication transaction models, where there's 6 things that are happening at the same time while 2 people are talking and listening. Of course, there could be a sender and a receiver, but then there's the perception of me thinking about you, me thinking about you, thinking about me thinking about me, thinking about you. It gets crazy. I can't even remember the transactional model from the top of my head. But once you take the 6 kind of points that are happening from this person and the 6 from this person and how they kind of cross wire, you've got what we call noise. And so even while you're talking and you're doing your best to actively listen, this is why it's called active listening, it can be very difficult to pay attention because your mind is it could be wandering, and you got to make sure that you're really honing in and focusing on what the individual is saying. Which is why I enjoy when I'm talking to somebody and then I talk with somebody else and I find a commonality between somebody who I just spoke with and then somebody else and can make the connection For me, it's the exercise of understanding that not only am I actively listening, but I'm also taking action in that moment. Okay, so what do you want to do? Well, some of the things that you can do is practice conversational pausing. So after sharing important insight, you want to just pause and invite the other person to react or to ask a question. I don't know if this is a cultural thing, but I know that I've heard this a long time ago that there is a particular, I believe, culture where when they talk, they take like 5 seconds before anybody responds. 5 seconds is a long time. Does this happen all the time, or should it happen all the time? Probably not. But because some of the best, as we talked with Jeff, was it last week or the week before? Some of the best writing in TV shows, it's just quick. Aaron Sorkin is our guy, great writer, and he has a very particular style. It's one person's talking right before the other person is finished, the other person is beginning. Like it's just bop, 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 bop. That's great for TV. I'm gonna take it down a notch. Maybe not 5 second pauses every single time, but this is not a TV show. This is real life. And as soon as somebody finishes and you bite right after, it gets it makes them feel as if you didn't even hear what they said because you were just getting ready to talk. All right. So you want to be careful of that. You want to use reflective listening, right? So not just active, but reflective listening, where you summarize the other person's comments before offering your own thoughts, showing that you heard and understood them. One of the best things that you can do is reinterpreting what somebody said. Also, what I hear you saying is that gives them the opportunity to say, yeah, that's actually what I said. This works in sales too, for those of you that are probably transactional and won't hear anything that I said out of that. Reflective listening, at the very least, will kind of get you pseudo listening, even though your intention is probably to be transactional anyway, which people can still see through, by the way. But set a collaborative tone as well, though. So what you want to do is frame ideas as open-ended. Very similar to the transactional solution. So what you can do is you can say something like, oh, I'd love your take on this. Or how would you approach this? Or if you're in this situation, what would you do? Put it on them and do it in a way that feels genuine. All right. Don't say it and then, you're just kind of like, oh God, I'm done. Okay. What you want to do is foster a sense of co-creation when it comes to these events. I'm telling you, this stuff works. I'm not telling you this because it's stuff that I've never done. The beauty of it is you don't have to be a C-level leader in order to do this. However, the reason why I'm addressing this particular demographic is because they might kind of maybe suffer from it a little bit more than others because of the level of position, responsibility, weight, power, responsibility, I said twice, that they have. And so sometimes they will navigate using, what they think might work in one scenario to kind of power through an event. I don't know. Just a hunch. This is the one that I struggle with. Neglecting follow-up. Consistently connecting, like the nurturing part. We all have our shadows. This is one of mine. Senior execs can often have jam-packed schedules, whatever it is, just lots of responsibility. And so even if you make excellent connections at an event, at a networking event, you might fail to follow up promptly or sustain long-term engagement. Now, here's the thing, and here is the deception. Even though I say I'm terrible at this, I'm also great at doing it with the ones that I would say, I don't want to get in trouble here, that matter the most. You got to prioritize. You've got an inner circle, then you've got a outer, and then a stratus. You got levels. You got radii of circles of people, and you just want to make sure that you are properly nurturing them, because if you try to nurture all of them, all of the connections that you've ever made, you'll burn out. You will. So if we're thinking about our CEO persona, he would be, or she would be, the big picture thinker in this particular scenario. So it's the person that perhaps is focused on next major milestones, strategic initiatives, but can overlook smaller but valuable connections that need nurturing over time. Networking events could be the litmus test or the microcosm of how you are probably leading or managing, whether if it's like, another exec team or just teams in general. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are using your time and your resources, wisely, but don't overlook the small things, the little people, right? In your company, there shouldn't be little people anyway. But this is what happens to the person who's always like this big picture. You're in the aerial view and the big picture, and it gets difficult sometimes to understand. And remember, we're talking about networking now, right? But difficult to understand that, oh wow, you know what, maybe I do need to reach out to this person. I remember years ago, I was at a company that there was some, you know, not a it wasn't an I wanted to say the word edict, but there was a particular it's not a rule. I don't know what to call it, guys, but some orders came down from the top, and all of us in like unison was like, did they forget like who's at the for the sake of this conversation, did they forget who's at the bottom, like who the boots on the grounds are, like direct reports, like did they forget what it was like? And we all were just like, man, I find it very concerning that perhaps maybe they weren't, but at one point y'all were doing what we were doing, and now y'all are telling us to triple the workload or whatever it was at the time, and we're just like, wow, they done really lost their ever loving minds. They didn't lose their minds, they just became high minded. Now there's a place for that, right? Growing the business, you need to have that sense of high mindedness in a sense. I know sometimes high minded sounds very negative, but I'm using it in the big picture thinking. But you also have to remember that even in that big picture, there are small brushstrokes that were taken. Don't forget the small brushstrokes. Don't forget to connect and to nurture with even sometimes what can, not all the time, but what can be the insignificant connection. Yes, be strategic, CEO. I'm getting you. I understand. You can't connect with everyone, but trust me, that one person could be the link to the next huge business opportunity. Right, CFO. So this person, he or she may be the metrics oriented persona in this particular scenario, neglecting to follow up and consistency. So the CFO may not see the immediate ROI of the follow up efforts. And so it causes them to deprioritize relationship building unless it's clearly revenue driven. It's so connected to transaction. It's so connected to the first pitfall. A lot of these are interconnected, by the way, y'all. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that if that is how you view relationships or even how you manage teams, you got to rewire just a little bit, because there are sometimes things that are in the intangibles, things that you can't necessarily see that does have at some point an ROI. You got to nurture both. You got to nurture what you can see and enough of, not every, but enough of what you can't see. You need both. Why? Because even though CFO, you're not the visionary knows how to do that, right? There's no ROI, at least in the foreseeable future. But man, did things turn around and now he's able to or she's able to hire a CFO for you to now deal with the things that can be seen, right? So that would probably be your challenge if you have that CFO kind of perception. For those of you that are the CTOs, so in this case, you are going to be the innovation centric persona in this particular scenario of neglecting to follow up. You might get sidetracked, like pressing tech roadmaps or R&D projects, and forgetting that timely personal touch points can matter just as much. You love to dig into the weeds of solving the problem. You need to get up, get out of that, get some air, and actually connect with people. All right? Yes, people are not problems. So it might be easy for you to be drawn to and attracted to solving problems versus connecting with people. But once again, you need both. CMOs are campaign focused personas in this particular scenario. You can move on to the next big launch or brand engagement, but you then let newly formed contacts kind of slip through the cracks. All right. You're not opportunists, right? But you're looking at the next perhaps trend or the next big opportunity that you need to seize in order for, the brand to just kind of resonate with a particular group of people that may not be around for that long or whatever the case is. It could be multiple things. And when I say for not that long, because maybe you need to ride the wave of a particular, I'm going to use the word trend again, and you need to seize that opportunity. People aren't opportunities. Listen, I'm telling you things that I've also had to tell myself, right? People are people. They're not problems to be solved. They're not opportunities to be exploited. They're not ROIs to be invested in, but you can invest in people. They're not. I guess for the CEO, they're not big pictures that you can. The CEO one is a little tough. The CEO is a little tough, but anyway, what you want to do is, this is so easy to do, but it's so hard to commit to. Create structured follow-up processes, or a structured follow-up process. They've got apps now to do that, by the way. I'll tell you that right now. I've tried a whole bunch. We call them personal relations management. It's like a CRM, but more for people, so it's like a PRM. And I've used Clay. Not really. Didn't really like Clay that much. It was too techie for me. I think they kind of focused more so on the UI than the actual experience of the whole thing. And I think I was using Clay before they rolled out with the whole subscription situation. So then that made it even more, for me, just not as usable, because there's only so much you can do with the free version. I've used Cove, Covve. Cove is pretty good. Now the UI is a little rough, but the usage, I think, was probably the most beneficial one. But sometimes you don't even need to do it. If you really want to get to the nitty gritty, all you need to do is ask your virtual assistant to, hey, remind me to call so and so. Now the problem with doing that, problem with asking or telling your virtual assistant to do that, is you need to set it up in a way that there's a schedule. So maybe you need to say it, verbalize it in a way that it's in your calendar, and then every 2 weeks, whatever, you follow up. The reason why I like Cove is because, and it just takes work to do this. It's so funny because I can track every meal, but I can't track the conversations I have with people. What you want to do is you want to make sure that and this, it actually does it for you. It would bring up interest or things that this person might be interested in, and you can actually share an article, or it's pretty cool. Here's the thing. You have to be intentional. No matter what tool you decide to do or decide to use, you just got to be intentional about it. Delegate wisely. So what you want to do is, as executives, you can rely on, hear me out, your chief of staff. You've got them. I mean, it depends on the size of your company, but you at least have an assistant or an exec assistant that can help schedule follow-ups, right? So maybe you don't have a virtual assistant, you have an actual assistant. Either way, make sure that you're putting it to good use, delegating it, but you should still craft personal messages, all right, to maintain authenticity. Offer value that's ongoing, all right? What you want to do is you want to share relevant articles. I mentioned this, there's an app that allows you to do that. That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to try to come up with some of these things. All right. For some reason today, tonight I'm just loving this gesture. I'm not sure why. All right. Share relevant articles, invite new context to industry events, or introduce them to valuable connections, demonstrating you're invested in a mutual relationship. Let me tell you, this happens more times than you think. Somebody pops into your mind and you say, oh man, you know what? Who would like this? The question is, what do you do in that moment? In that very moment. Now, the problem is you may have these moments flicker throughout the day. And so you don't really, you don't really have the time to, every time it comes up, like, oh, if you do it right, it's just a quick boop, 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 boop. But sometimes you just don't have the ability to do so. So you can do this in it goes back to the first solution, in a more structured way, so that when it comes up, you can just jot it down and then you can get back to it. Or virtual assistant or actual assistant. I guess in this case, nowadays, virtual is actual. All right. What else? Okay, so this is, let's talk about C leaders that are kind of on the other side. We're going to go to the darker side now. The ones that are overconfident or ego-led. So you have these overconfident, ego-led interactions. Okay. These are the individuals where, for instance, the CEO may have a commanding persona. You must listen to me. So they might dominate conversations with sweeping vision statements, unintentionally shutting down others' contributions. It's not even manipulating the conversation. It's like a literal shutdown. It's a whole different side. There's a spectrum here. One side, you're not really active listening. Then you get to like manipulating conversations, just kind of, um, not manipulating, monopolizing conversations. And then you get to this side where you're just like, y'all need to listen to me. Uh, Megalomania, maybe, perhaps. CFOs. So CFOs, they have a very similar persona to I think it is the I want to say it's the transactional interactions that they have. So remember, they're like the financial guardian. Here, though, instead of the financial guardian, they're just a little bit more guarded. Period. So they could appear dismissive, skeptical of new ideas unless they're immediately backed by data, discouraging open dialogue. There are people who, when they have conversations, they'll immediately go to verify it. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't verify certain things that people are saying, but once you do that every single time, it kind of takes away from the actual connection, and to an extent, not being gullible, but a level of trust to at least have the conversation. And then if you do have, or you're not really sure where they're getting that information from, you got to balance it out. You got to balance it out without having this instinctive desire to Google everything that they're saying right there on the spot. Now that might be arguable, but the connection is not going to come from how right the other person is, right? Um, CTO experts, because remember, y'all are like problem solving. So in this particular scenario, you are the expert persona. So you may convey a know-it-all attitude when discussing technical subjects, and overshadows collaborative brainstorming. Remember, this is kind of on the darker side of interactions that can happen in a networking event. CMOs, you might be brand obsessed. This brand obsessed persona. You can overemphasize personal and corporate brand achievements, but you leave little room to value other people's experiences or perspectives. So how do you avoid this? Well, the first thing is, and this is so hard to do, but you got to be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Adopt humility. Okay. Share lessons. Learn from failures or challenges, not just your successes. Now, the other thing, though, is to practice self-awareness. Read the room. Listen, at some point, you've gotten to the C-level because you understand. Like, there are things that you just know, not about the business, but about people. If it was built right, like if this, C-suite was built, it was non-toxic, like it was because not just you know how to do business right, but you know how to also, I was going to say do people right, but you also know how to work with people appropriately and effectively and meaningfully. Both. You gotta. So what that means is you gotta watch for signs when you're talking too much or dismissing alternate viewpoints. It's not a board meeting, y'all. Y'all in a social event. Be social. All right. Okay. Also encourage dialogue. So this is again what you want to do is, because you have the power to do this, especially when you're talking to people who, let's say, might be direct reports or people who are, in lower ranks, so to speak. Asking them what they think. Oh man, they may think the world of you. Now, if this is just, like a whole nother event where it's just all C-level people, period, even then that's a level of humility where you say, what do you think about that? And not in a way that's, snarky or even arrogant, like, so what do you think? Because you don't even really care about what they think. Like, what do you think? Because you're kind of trying to parse what they're about to say versus genuinely wanting to know what they actually think. So yeah. What else? Okay, this is another dark one. The over reliance on formal titles and hierarchy. Oh, stop! Don't do that at an event. People already know, and if they don't, like you could, there are ways to slide it in there without feeling like you. What do I mean? So the CEO in this particular scenario, you would have the authority persona. So you may inadvertently intimidate junior attendees or even potential partners who feel they must impress the boss, right? Lay up on the titles and just Say it once, if you even need to. Yeah, I'm one of the co-founders. Oh yeah, I'm the CEO. Sometimes you don't even need to say the title. Listen, y'all, read the. Sometimes you don't even need to say the title. You just say what you do. Speaks volumes. All right. CFOs, you in this particular scenario would be considered the gatekeeper persona. So you might come off as inaccessible if every conversation flows through formal processes or requires a high level of justification. It's like the only way that you can have a seat at the table in this networking event, in this little group of 4 people that's here, is if everything you say can be 100% justified, and just calm down, relax, enjoy the conversation, talk with people, not through people, or having to put them through an entire process to see whether or not they should even be a part of the little clique that you done created because you're the CFO. No. CTOs, you would be considered the technical leader persona in this particular scenario. Remember, the scenario is over reliance on your formal titles or your hierarchy. So for CTOs, your technical leader persona, if perceived as a top technical authority, others might actually hesitate to voice differing opinions on innovation or product direction. Very similar to the CEO's authority persona. So you want to be mindful of that. And the CMOs can have the brand evangelist persona. Sounds nice. It sounds very optimistic, right? Sounds positive. But it could overshadow creative or collaborative brainstorming by always framing ideas through the brand hierarchy or through the chain of command. So you want to be very careful of that, CMOs, right? What does that mean? Well, based on what we have, based on the brand's vision, or based on what the brand does, like, everything's the brand, and so people are like, well, I can't get a word edgewise because you just, the brand is all seeing and all knowing. So you basically personified the brand. The brand has become the CEO. That is the persona that you should avoid. All right. So how do you avoid this? Well, first of all, be approachable. Right? Use first names. To an extent, I know some people are like, I don't do small talk. Relax. Do a little bit of small talk. It's okay. Small talk can be a little healthy. All right. Listen, you're at a networking event. I'm down. Also, show vulnerability. So share where you're still learning. All right. This encourages others to speak freely as well. And then foster inclusivity. So you want to ask for input from everyone, including, depending on who's there, right? It could be junior professionals, or it can be your colleagues as well. But just being a little bit more inclusive in your conversation. Right. Okay. There are a few more. We're not going to get to all of them here. But what you want to do is you want to make sure, listen, what you want to make sure that you focus on is how you relate. And listen, how you relate to people in a social setting is more than likely how you relate to those, perhaps if you actually see them at work, those same individuals or others in the boardroom, in the workplace, in your management teams. You are a person, you're a human being. Everything is, take this with a grain of salt, but everything is interconnected. So how you relate here, there's some, unless perhaps maybe you're a sociopath, I don't know, something leaks out or reflects how you connect in another way. Now, I do get and understand that we tend to have different hats or different facades based on the event or the scenario, the environment that we're in. I get it. But there's still you, like you are connected in all of that. I would even argue, as much as I talked about reinvention, I think it was last year, the year before, that even then, even if your core values have shifted, those that know you know it's still you, but you've just changed. You've changed, but you're still you. It's hard to put that into words, but you can change your entire, remember we talked about that, you can change your entire value system. You can, rearrange your habits. You can, and yet those that really know you, they'll know that you are just a more evolved version of the person that you knew or wanted to become. Anywho, avoid these things, guys. Avoid overconfidence, hierarchy based interaction. Meh, throw it away. Ignoring diverse perspectives. Meh, throw it away. Technology distractions or financial, all of the things that you might do that when you're talking shop, which is great. Sometimes talking shop could technically be considered small talk, but don't do it so much that it, just kind of makes the social event like you're still at work. I know it's hard to explain, at least right now, without me having to write these thoughts out. Taking time to sit down and write them out. So you're just kind of getting it as it comes right now. But I hope you get the gist of what I'm saying. I'm not saying to lay your titles to the side, but that's actually what I'm saying. So the person who's the C-level leader will always carry that persona because it's not them being the C-level leader. They're a leader. And good leaders know how to carry it well. Good leaders know how to make other people feel comfortable to open up and to have dialogue versus there being diatribes or debates. Nothing's wrong with a good debate. There's a time and place. And perhaps, depending on the networking event, you might do a little got a little scuffle, but the entire thing shouldn't be a debate. It shouldn't be about you exerting your power, your authority, your knowledge, your ability to solve a problem, whatever it is, and for other people to see that all the time. Calm down. Calm down, right? And just be a person. Be a person. Don't be a role, be a person. And I guarantee you. Oh, here we go. So the framework that I was going to share with you, it's very simple. It's very simple. The people that you see, that you notice who are very charismatic, they're the ones that help or allow people to be seen. People who feel like they're heard, and people who feel like they're remembered. So they feel seen, they feel heard, they are remembered. The remembered is the follow-up piece, all right? So to be seen, maybe they did a panel. Maybe they I don't know, maybe there's something that they're wearing. Like, oh wow, I like that tie. Oh wow, I like your shoes. Oh wow, that dress is amazing. Whatever it is, to be seen. People think that charisma is about how you are presenting yourself and what you're saying and how you're moving. That's part of it. The other part is how people perceive you when you're actually engaging with them. And the more they feel seen, the more they feel heard, and the more they feel remembered, the more likely they will want to do business with you. They want to follow up with you versus you feeling like the burden has to be on you kind of carrying or nurturing the relationship or that connection. The more charismatic you appear. The be seen is the easiest one. Literally looking at them or seeing something that they did and say, wow. Heard is another one. That's where active listening comes in. This is where you need to ask questions. The only way that they can feel heard is if they are what? Talking. And the only way, not the only way, but the best way, the most effective way to get them to talk is to do what? Ask questions. Ask them questions, open-ended questions. And sometimes you got to start first. Like, oh man, I remember the last time that I was at one of these events, man, and I got to tell you, it grew. Like it has evolved in such a different way. I remember when it was like three blocks down, and now here it is. Now, what was the last time that you were at one of these events? Just like that. And guess what? It can be the most basic question, but a few things. The energy as you're talking, and they kind of feel like, oh man, this guy's pretty okay. And then you transfer that energy through a question that you ask them. Wow. Like, oh wow, now he's interested in me. She's interested in me. And what I have to say and what my experience is. And then it is the remembered piece. The remembered piece doesn't only happen at the event. Now, it can happen like, let's say it's a 5-day event, 3-day event. And not only is it, hey, I remember, I recognize you. No, 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 not just that. But what did they say? What did they do? What are they interested in? These things happen after you leave, even if it's a 5-day event. This is where the tool of I'm actually looking at the camera more this time. This is where the tool of your business card comes in. Not the one that you gave out, but the one that they gave you. And here's the crazy part. If you do it right, you wouldn't even need a business card. You'd already have their number in your phone. All right, y'all. That's all I got. I hope this was helpful. We actually got more people on today. This is good. It's good. Let me know if you want me to talk more about this kind of stuff. I actually like this. Actually, I enjoy it. Not necessarily talking about the dark. Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe that's something y'all want to hear more about. The dark side of the C-suite. I don't know. But what I will say is that whatever I'm telling you from the C-level experience, I'm not in the C-level yet. Whatever I'm telling you from that experience, it is the similar. I was gonna say the same. It's not the same, y'all. But very similar to somebody who is not in the upper echelons of an organization. It's similar. Why? Because it's people. It's people stuff, y'all. Now, don't get me wrong. It takes practice. And don't get me wrong, you need to have a skill set of some sort, whether if it's money, or whether if it's technology, or just the ability to envision something and to get people sold and to mobilize people behind it. The buy-in. Listen, buy-in, I can't even say it's a skill. That's a talent to get people to want to dig a hole in the desert because they believe that water is there because you told them that it's there. It's a gift. Now there are things that you can use, skills that you can build, but man, that is a gift. So those things, listen, so I'm not taking away those things, right? But what I am saying is that even with the skill sets and the time that you've put in deeply understanding an organization, or deeply understanding your craft, mastering your craft, and coming into a new organization and applying that deep understanding of how you've managed, worked with, led people, at the end of the day, it's still people. Still people, y'all. It's still people. Want to be a great leader? Start with being great with people. All right, I'm ending the stream. I'll see you. Listen, the weeks have been interesting. Like, my schedule has changed, so I gotta find better ways to connect with y'all. So I'm still working that out. As y'all can see, I don't think I've streamed in like a few days in a row. I felt it. So I'm working some things out. But what I won't do, this is what I won't do in 2025. I won't not give myself grace. So I shall put that in the positive grammatical structure. I will apply grace to myself. All right. So, I might have missed a few days, but that's okay. We back. All right. And the goal is to stay back. Well, really to go forward. Yeah. Okay. I'm out, y'all.